On Saturday, the Playhouse Theatre will be transformed into a refugee camp. For performances of The Jungle, the seats have been removed, and in the place there is an Afghan restaurant serving the best tandoori naan you'll get this side of Kuwait, with the white cliffs of Dover in the background. It's a huge statement of intent by a West End theatre, says Joe Murphy, the artistic director of the production. In London theatre, we are at a vital moment where there is an acknowledgement that new stories are happening and we are going to have to change. He stops and laughs self-depreciatingly. If this works, that is. The Jungle premiered at the Young Vic last year. It is based on what Murphy, 27, and his co-artistic director Joe Robertson, 28, saw during their 7 months volunteering in the Calais refugee camp, running the Good Chance Theatre there in a pop-up plastic dome. They won an Evening Standard Theatre Award 2 years ago, and director Stephen Daldry threw his weight behind this charming and impressive pair early on. The play centers around Oakett, who is desperate to get to the UK, and Beth, a volunteer dedicated to helping him. The Jungle Review, Cheers and Tears at Tales from the Calais camp wrestles with the consequences of mass migration, says Murphy. There were people in the jungle clumped together making an effort to create structures and live together in a way that we are now having to do, in a macro sense, in our cities, with different religions living side by side. How do we deal with the consequences of this movement and turn them into opportunities? That's scary for some people. Art is a secret weapon. Adamant to get his point across, he continues. It's not a woolly thing of art will save the world. Art is the start of a conversation that will lead to concrete social relationships that did not exist before. This play is part of making sure that this concern doesn't disappear as one of the realities we have to work with. I don't say reality is a negative thing, it can be an opportunity. Nations are strengthened by different cultures being part of them. Returning to the UK for her first appearance in London in more than 25 years, Amadivia Smith delivers her award-winning one-woman play. She interviewed more than 250 students, parents, teachers and staff from across the spectrum of America's poverty to prison pipeline, exposing an ingrained system that pushes young people of color straight from school to jail. It played to critical acclaim off-Broadway in 2016, and she has been praised for her work by President Barack Obama. First produced for the Young Vic with Good Chance Theatre, the play shines a light on the residents of the Calais jungle. It tells stories of the camp's creation, the lives and communities that existed there, and its eventual destruction. In the Playhouse's production, audiences can choose to sit on the cliffs of Dover or at the tables of the camp's Afghan cafe. Either way, you'll have a transformative experience and be reminded that, while the camp may have gone, the people have not. Following on from his huge success with BAFTA award-winning drama Murdered by My Father, Vinay Patel takes us on a journey spanning 7 decades and 3 continents. An adventure is inspired by the experiences of his immigrant grandparents leaving post-partition India to reach 1970s London, via Mau Mau, Kenya. Starting in 1954, we follow Jyoti and her suitor Rashik and hear about the people who arrived with hope in the UK and made it the country it is today. As revelations of UAL misconduct and coercion continue to surface, the notion of consent has never been so talked about as it is now. And it's about time. The debut play from Pear-Shaped looks at period shaming, feminism and the many ills of patriarchal society, but with an injection of humor. When Alice goes to the pharmacy looking for the morning after pill, she meets Joe, who introduces her to the world of radical female activism. Sticky is about stalemate that exists in the way we teach young people about. It looks at the failings of our education system, which leads young people to turn to pornography to educate themselves, but shames them for doing so. As public shaming becomes the norm in society, Sticky questions how young people can be themselves when they have a constant fear of being shunned. Nearly 40 years ago, Clean Break was set up by 2 women prisoners to share the hidden stories of women behind bars through the medium of theatre. With variations on the theme of women and crime, the company is still the only one of its kind. Blank, by Alice Birch, explores the lives of adults and children affected by the UK's criminal justice system, in a series of 60 vignettes. The performing groups presents as many of the scenes as they want to create their own narrative, making every performance different from the last. Cardboard Citizens is the only professional theatre company in the UK working with people who have experience of homelessness, or are at risk of being homeless. Cathy, the 21st century adaptation of Ken Loach's Cathy Come Home, reached critical acclaim at Edinburgh Fringe and the Soho Theatre. Off the back of this success, they have launched the Citizens' Day movement to help end homelessness and raise awareness. Since March, they have been collecting audience ideas that range from destigmatizing the issue to offering spare rooms to people without a home, and sending people specific actions that they can take each week. They want as broad an audience as possible. Robertson interjects, "There's a thing on the left at times that shuts down debate and says certain viewpoints are so unacceptable that they can't be said. We call the theatre domes. We build safe spaces for dangerous conversations. The dangerous conversations are important. This is the same conversation as Brexit, that Emmanuel Macron is having when he suggests we should think about the idea that although France can hold everyone, we have to think about other identities in a different way. In a world of increasing movement that really can't be stopped, how do you make the experience of living with each other better? Maybe the first thing to admit is that it won't be easy." With a thoughtful nod, Murphy follows up, "It won't be easy, but theatre endures because it is such a deep and collaborative act of storytelling and puts at its centre empathy. That has to be a starting point when there is a great movement in our times." Calais Jungle play is heading to the West End. Robertson tries to sum up his thoughts with a line from the play but becomes embarrassed. "You should never quote your own play. Is it terrible?" Murphy saves him by reciting what he was thinking of. "Some people say living together is easy but you can't trust them. These are difficult things, my friend. I do not pretend we do not make mistakes and many more will be made." Refugees were evicted from the jungle 2 years ago by the French government, but there are still around 1,000 people living there, hiding in the woods, off the grid in precarious conditions. Paris is facing a refugee crisis, with thousands camped out on the streets there, while many are trying to enter the UK from Normandy. Good Chance is doing a lot of work in Paris now, with shows, exhibitions and events to make the refugee experience more visible, says Robertson. A broad cross-section of society has come to see them and been inspired to offer spare rooms for refugees to stay in. Murphy and Robertson, who met at Oxford University, are the first to question their own work. There is a section in the play called The Arrival and Murphy describes it as being like a parody. It's about the arrival of British volunteers and it sends up the idea of coming in with the best of intentions but not understanding what is happening. Robertson adds, "If you could ever understand the jungle, Fantastic Foxes team up for a Wild West End delight." Read our review. Laura Linney is compaking and careful. Read our review. Orlando Bloom stays cool in this shallow revival. Read our review. Risky reimagining of Molière is erratically funny and politically clunky. Read our review. Topical relevance to this revival about the power of language. Read our review. Fresh perspective on the refugee crisis but little focus on personal detail. Read our review. Tale of law and marriage takes a discordant turn. Read our review. Hard men are softened by sewing but it's not a perfect tapestry. Read our review. A keen-eyed vision of the difficulties experienced by people who have left the Caribbean for a new life. Read our review. One-upmanship rules on the rocky road to the top. Read our review. A mother lives the American nightmare. Read our review. A chronicle of intimacy and absence, guilt and affection. Read our review. A resonant score and a sharp script. Read our review. A bewildering love battle with extreme Morris dancing. Read our review. Alfred Molina brilliantly captures energy and grandeur of Mark Rothko. Read our review. Michelle Terry plays a bold, but not quite as you'd like it. Read our review. The tale of star-crossed lovers is brought into dazzlingly sharp relief. Read our review. Fantastic Foxes team up for a Wild West End delight. Read our review. Zizzy Stralin steals the show in this ballroom battle. Read our review. Tina Turner musical is not quite better than all the rest. Read our review. Batty, bombastic night of thunderous hits. Read our review. Razzle Dazzle returns to delight us in the West End. Read our review. Clear, gripping and, above all, poundingly urgent. Read our review. A send-up of rampant showbiz ambition. Read our review. I'm sure people looked at us and went, what the F asterisk 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 are they doing here? Grins Murphy. Robertson remembers, our friend Majid, who travelled from Iran, needed some shoes because his were falling apart, so he walked into the theatre dome and went, guys, where are the shoes? We told him it was a theatre. He walked straight out. And he was a fine artist. But he did come in the next day because he wanted to paint. Now HES at an animation company here and we work with him a lot. Their work is directly political, explains Robertson. Is there a difference between trying to build a theatre and a community that brings people together and writing a law? I would remove that distinction. A greater crossover between politics and art is probably a good thing. The name Good Chance came from the refugees. They would say, there's going to be a good chance tonight, explains Robertson. A good chance at the port, no chance on the trains. It was an integral phrase, often based on very little Every night people were risking their lives on trains and lorries trying to escape the jungle. But they couldn't escape, so out of necessity they had to build and create a structured life there. It was an absurd tragedy. The Joes were there during the evictions of the camp, which started in March 2016. It was utterly apocalyptic, to be honest, says Robertson. The big argument was that you could evict these people, but you have to make sure there are places for them to go, especially the kids. They fall prey so easily to traffickers. About 198 children went missing. We never saw them again. Refugee saved from Calais tells of love of Britain despite hate crimes. The eviction is dramatized in the play, and it's one of the most moving moments for Murphy. It typifies a spirit common in the jungle, which is an acknowledgement that we are from all over the world, but we are here together now, so we might as well stand together. Since then, they identify a shift in attitudes and fear, what Murphy calls fatigue in the conversation. Robertson takes the lead on this one. Across Europe there's a tightening of laws and solidifying of anti-refugee sentiment, particularly in Hungary and some parts of Eastern Europe. In Britain, stories about Grenfell and Windrush are revealing difficult truths about how people are living together in this country. It seems to be shifting public perception in the same way as the story of Alan Kurdi, the refugee boy washed up on the beach in Bodrum in 2015. I've always thought of the public attitude to refugees as 2 steps forward, 1 step back at any one time. We feel determined. Calais was a real shock, and now, as a result of the difficulties of that place, we have a small but growing charity which we think can help in lots of different situations. Robertson breaks the intensity with a joke. Well, we'd better get on with rehearsals. We don't have long to get all this done. The Jungle is at the Playhouse, WC2 at tickets.com, June 16th to November 3rd. Click here to buy London theatre tickets with Go London Tickets.